Hey guys, welcome to the Gary My podcast. I hope you stay for the conversation, but leave feeling loved, inspired, and ready to make a difference. Let's do it. All right, welcome back to the Gary My podcast. I have Jen McCutcheon are you from Toronto? Is that where we're looking at, from the east side, or where are you from?
Just outside of Toronto, close to Kingston, Ontario.
Okay. So you are the founder of Enable No More Radiant Recovery Programs and Moms on a Mission Solution Focused Community. I'm reading it off of the synopsis that I asked you to send me. And I know that you also put together a book with a bunch of other authors called A Bigger Mission. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So I am extremely excited to have you on board. It's quite funny how it all worked together. We were talking here just off air before, and we were just saying about how the challenges are with being a mom and the real rawness of it. And our listeners will know that we had just released a episode here where we talked to Carla, and she shares her story. And it's just great to have you on because now you have the same similar type of story, but you've taken it now to a different level of healing. Jen, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's
Thank you for
really an
being here.
honor. I love having these conversations. I love sharing my story because I know the power in the vulnerability of me sharing my story really gives other people permission, women, parents, families, loved ones who have a child struggling with addiction. So yeah, I mean, I'm the founder of Enable No More Radiant Recovery programs for mothers, parents, families. And I came to this because I am a mother. I am a parent of a child who has struggled with addiction for the last 10 years. I
Right.
also was married to not just one, but two partners that struggled with substance abuse.
Wow.
So
Okay.
my journey is over 20 years of being impacted by my loved ones' addictions and mental health
Mhm.
challenges and suicidal ideation. And the truth is, in the States alone, there's 46, 47 million people struggling with substance abuse
Mhm.
disorder. But for every one person, there is a ripple effect of impact on family members. So,
Yeah,
I
glad you
mean,
said that.
it isn't just those struggling in addiction that need support. And I believe the missing piece to the puzzle of really breaking the stigma and breaking the cycles of suffering with addiction and mental health is to have family recovery. All of us need support. And what I recognized on my journey for 20 years was I was struggling, I was hurting, I didn't have the resources, and I was consumed in trying to help my loved ones and therefore suffered even more. And there is a real thing. There's a stigma against families when it comes to addiction. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't, and then what happens is it triggers, this is the deeper part, it triggered my own unhealed trauma because I couldn't fix it. I
Wow.
tried everything and I couldn't fix it, which then came back to I must not be good enough. So these are how we get caught in the traps. I was trapped in the cycles and I was trapped in deep, deep suffering to the point where it really broke me. It cracked me open though to a new level of truth about myself and my mission, what my purpose was in all
Mhm.
of the suffering. And I began to really slowly recover my health and my happiness. And on that journey, I recognized the things that I was learning, the truths that I was coming to, I couldn't keep to myself. I needed to share it because the more I talked about my story, the more I realized how many other people were experiencing the same thing as me and I could
Wow.
help them. And that's really how I got to where I am today.
Wow, Jen, that's a crazy story. I love how you've come out through the other end. Before we actually unpack your healing programs and where you are today, could you talk a little bit in detail about your journey from how it started and where was the point in your life where it was like, you know what, I've had enough. Like I've a lot of moms, I mean, my listeners know that I've gone through a lot of addiction myself personally. I have also gone through an addiction in my family member with my brother who had gone through psychosis and
Hmm.
unfortunately has developed brain damage. And we are stuck in what like a broken record. So we have a lot of damage and there's been a lot of toll taken on our family where my mom even passed away too. And I think that was also correlated with a lot of all this stress where there wasn't a platform for moms or parents to sit out and say, hey, man, I'm sending my kid to rehab, but he might be broken, but I'm like just completely lost in this place of like pure exhaustion where I have no more to give, how do I move forward? How do you even forgive for all of this pain and angst that you've had? Could you dig into a little bit how you got here and your story?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a long one. And I mean, I
Yeah.
used to say, my healing journey began 5 years ago, but really, my healing journey began right from the very beginning, like right from my childhood, right from like when I was
Okay.
birthed into this world. Like that's
Wow.
really truly what I believe, that we are all on this journey of awakening and remembering our worth, who we are. So when my childhood, I didn't, 5 years ago, I would have said I never had trauma. I didn't have trauma. Now I know, again, trauma comes in many different forms. It looks different. And I had experienced childhood trauma in lots of different things that happened to me and things that didn't happen to me that I really longed for.
Mhm.
But the journey really began when my first husband was diagnosed with border or bipolar disorder, and he began using, which I wasn't aware of, while he was on, lithium and other medications to try to help his mental health. And
Okay.
really my whole family blew up. Like the whole thing. It was like somebody flipped a switch and my whole world was turned upside down. I had two young babies. I was in this abusive relationship. And again, I hit that turning point, that moment in time where I'm like, I can't stay here. I have to get out of here. I have to leave. My kids are not safe. I'm not safe. And I removed myself. I began my healing journey.
Yeah.
I started to do the things that I needed to do, rebuild my life, be
How
well,
long were you
because
in your first marriage for?
it was about 10 years.
Okay. So it
And
wasn't sort of an overnight fix. It took you some while to pull that strength together and decide, hey, I need to take my kids and myself out of this situation.
yeah, and it was really it was there was some things that were going on in the marriage. But again, I was so young and
Yeah.
I'd never experienced mental health challenges or addiction issues with anybody. So this was like I was such a newbie and I really didn't understand what I was experiencing.
Yeah.
And I had these belief systems, the white picket fence, till death
Hmm.
do us part. I talk about this all the time, that, we stay in relationships and marriages and relationships in general because we have a belief system of what we should be doing and how we
Right.
should be showing up instead of listening to my own intuition and knowingness.
Well, you wouldn't have known even back then. There was nothing that was offered as in regards to tools. There was no
Exactly.
conversations. There was a stigma behind mental health. And then also, I bet you, as back then, divorce wasn't as prevalent as it is today in regards to like being able to move on, and it's okay, and there's no shame in it. I mean, back then, like you said, death do us part,
Yeah. Yeah.
literally
Like
at that point, right?
I believed, like I remember, like I had to, he's sick. He's sick. I
Yeah,
can't leave him when he's sick. Meanwhile, I was abandoning myself and
yeah, that's good.
I ended up, struggling with depression and slowly I began to rebuild my life. And
Hmm.
I remarried to a partner who was a very high functioning alcoholic. And it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. Like I
Okay,
didn't recognize it as
no major red
alcoholism.
flags yet.
I didn't like I knew that he was a heavy drinker, but I really believed he was in
Yeah,
control of it. He
okay,
was a high functioning, very successful, and I know, kind person. I fell in love with
sure,
him,
yeah,
and things again very slowly things began to kind of fall apart. And at the same time, at the age of 15, my son began his journey with mental health
okay.
and addiction. And at 15 years old, he was admitted into his first drug addiction treatment center, a
Mhm.
6 month youth
Oh, okay.
rehabilitation center. And when I say, he went hard. It was like life or death right out of the gates. And it was devastating because I had tried everything, even with
Do you
my
think that
younger.
was something that was carried on in his genes from his father?
Yeah, from what I understand now, after
Yeah.
all these years of my own spiritual healing journey, the training that I've had in trauma and recovery, I have a little different of approach of an understanding of it because yes, there are genetics there. His father
Mhm.
struggles with mental health and addictions. His half brother struggles with mental health and addictions.
Right.
Like there's
Yeah.
definitely a genetic
There's something there.
component. I also know that we're talking about generational trauma. We're
Hmm.
talking about lineages of unhealed trauma that
Okay.
I recognize my son is carrying And that is part of the expression of what he is experiencing right now, along with his own trauma from his experiences. And this is I
Interesting.
believe this is really the truth for anybody who is struggling with mental health
If
or
you see me
addiction.
looking down, I'm actually taking notes. By the way, I'm like, this is really good. Yeah. So like
Awesome.
I've heard of generational trauma before, and it is such an interesting topic for me that everyone deals with mental issues in some capacity. And
Yeah.
some of us have it a little bit more heavier. And I've always kind of wanted to know why that is. Even if we come from a very well-to-do, fixed from the outside looking family, no real like major issues, parents are still together, everything is good, Christmas is like, you know what I mean? Like a really sort of put together
Yeah.
family, but you always still see people in those situations struggling and
Mhm.
asking why. Like, why do I still feel like crap?
Yeah. So this is such a great question because I mean, even right now, I mean, we all have generational trauma. We're all walking around with different degrees of trauma, our own trauma and trauma that we carry through the epigenetics. So this is like
Mhm.
a tag on our DNA. So
Wow.
the reality is, the truth is, we are spiritual beings. We are
Yeah.
energetic beings. This is not woohoo, like
No.
people may have thought that, but this is coming to be proven by science. Like we
Yep.
are energetic beings. We create through the same universal energy. Energy that created the universe is
Mm-hmm.
within us. Our
100%.
the molecules, like
Yep.
everything within
And
us.
even like stems even into religion too, where people in
It
all
does.
different types of religion, we have God in us. So our
Exactly.
creator is in us. So that's where I
Exactly.
completely relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like it is the God of your choosing, God,
Yep.
spirit, source, universe, your higher self.
Mhm.
It's this energy, and this energy interconnects us. We are all one. We are oneness. This is the universal law of oneness.
Yeah.
So what I experience, and there is a collective interconnectedness
Mhm.
to all things and all beings of this timeline and other dimensions. Like it's the entire
Yeah.
encompassing
Fascinating.
oneness of
Yeah.
everything. So when we're talking about generational trauma, it's a collective trauma.
Okay.
And when we're talking about lineages, if you look at your lineage, I mean, as far back as you can, 7 generations, that if you're really willing to open the book and take a look, you will recognize there are traumas within your lineage.
Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
constellations of trauma within your
Right.
lineage. And why some people connect to it and others don't.
Hmm.
Part of it is environment in which they're living. It's the mindset in which they're looking through this lens of
Right.
life.
Yeah.
And when we understand that not all of this stuff that we're experiencing is ours, it actually helps us to be able to go, okay, it makes a little bit more sense. I'm not broken.
There's a freedom in that too.
Yeah, there's a
Release.
freedom. It's
Yeah.
like, shit, maybe it's not, maybe there isn't
Right.
anything really
Maybe I'm
wrong
not
with
the
me.
problem here.
Right. It's like, okay, this is the purpose. This
Yeah.
is what I get excited about because the purpose in the pain is that when you come to this realization that what you're experiencing, the suffering, the pain, the hardships, the darkness, the friggin',
Mhm.
that like
Yeah.
that yucky,
That
heavy
gut
feeling,
wrench. Yeah.
I get to actually change it. I get to heal it. I get to break the cycles of generational trauma for
Mm.
me and the lineages to come after me,
So
my
good.
children's children's children. And this goes for everybody, women, mothers, children. We get to, when we recognize the power that we have to change and heal our trauma, we can heal our trauma.
So what was your turning point? Where in your life's journey in your second marriage where you're like,
Hmm.
okay, like there's got to be more than this. This is now second time around, and now you're dealing with your son. He's in rehab, and this is the beginning. I mean, there must have been a point in your life where you're just like almost rock bottom and saying,
Oh,
you know what,
yeah.
like it's either I turn off the lights and go to sleep, or I have to make a real change in my life. I think
Yeah.
because I mean the way that you're
I had
talking, it just sounds like
Yeah,
very
I
deep.
had many, many rock bottoms, let me tell you,
Okay,
or
so it's
moments
not
of
just
turning
one, right?
points, not just one. I will
Okay.
like I had many and I kept resisting the reality, the truth that I had to take responsibility for my life. I had to be the one to change. But it was a real the turning point for me was, and this had gone on probably about 6 years with my son, like
Hmm.
too many overdoses to count, near death
Okay. What
experiences.
was his death? I'm sorry, not death. His drug of choice.
Honestly, you name it, you
Right.
name
Just
it,
anything. Did you
anything.
find out what the reason for his chase was, or is it like you say the generational trauma, or was he trying to was he just caught up in a good time and then it just sort of got worse from there, or was like for me, like my
No, it
brother,
was
he was
it
chasing
was
something.
yeah, it was honestly the loss. His father never died, but again, his
Okay. Yeah.
biological father
Right.
was in active addiction for his entire childhood.
Yeah, that can do it.
And he had abandonment issues is really the
Right. Right.
core of my dad doesn't love me.
Mm-hmm.
And, there was very limited contact with his father. And then in and out
Yeah.
relationship where it
Okay.
was like a re-traumatization over and over
Right.
and over.
So there's a
And
root. Yeah.
so there was that's really the root cause
Mm-hmm.
and the meaning that he put on his father not being there for him.
Right. No, that's fair.
And
Okay.
yeah, so and genetics as well,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my rock bottom though really was it was a perfect storm. This is how the
Yeah.
universe
Just
it
everything.
just
Yeah.
like I it's like that tornado. It just was brewing. It was coming. And I was at work. I was in a job where I was being harassed.
Uh,
My ex-husband or my husband at the time was like really struggling with his alcoholism. It got really, really bad. My son was again in and out of the hospitals,
mm-hmm.
living on the streets. You name it, there was everything was happening at once.
Yeah.
And I quit my job. I got in my car and I was driving to my parents because I was like, I need relief. I need to get away. I was running. I literally was running
Mm-hmm.
away. And I was on the highway and it was a moment where I was like, you know what? If I just veer my car into the oncoming traffic, this will be over. My pain will be over. I can just end it now. And I literally was like just about to take the steering wheel and just give her.
Wow. Okay.
And I had the most profound experience come over me. It was like this warmth of it's like this oozy, yummy goodness of warmth that just like oozed through my body. And it was a light and a presence that
Like
like
an
dwelled
embrace.
within me. It was grace and it was angelic and it was like a love I had never ever experienced before. And I'm feeling it right now as it comes, it's like reappears in my life.
Mm.
And and the message was, your life matters.
Huh.
You matter. And it's not for nothing. Keep
Beautiful.
going. And it snapped me into like, okay, like it was just like I couldn't, it was an undeniable moment of God source coming through me and helping me remember that my life matters too, that it's my responsibility to hold
Mm.
myself and to love myself, knowing that there's a reason for everything that I'm going through.
Yeah.
And I drove to my parents and I crawled into bed and I slept and I slept. And I woke up the next morning and I laugh about it now, but I woke up the next morning with like, I got to join yoga teacher training. I got to become a yoga teacher. And I did.
Newfound energy.
I get
Yeah. Sorry, I
registered
got
for
a little
yoga
emotional
teacher.
listening to your story. Yeah, that is great.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So
Yeah.
then when you got up the next morning and it felt like a new start, is that where life began for you?
That's where the unfolding really started to take place, where I
Okay.
started to shed shit that no longer served me.
Right.
Honestly, it was the beginning of the conclusion of my marriage.
Okay.
It took some time for that to really unfold, but it was the really beginning of me saying no more.
Hmm.
And that's the found like enable no more is I no
Enable no
longer
more.
wanted to enable myself to no longer be in charge of my life. I didn't want to enable my son or my partner to continue to cast the responsibility onto me. Enable no more is about taking ownership of your life, of reclaiming your peace and your purpose. And the only one
Mhm.
that could do it was me. So I started to really dive deep into new ways because the things that I had looked into, and I'm not against therapy or counseling, it only
No.
took me so far.
Right.
I was in all the support groups. I did the Naranon and the Al Anon, and it only took me so far. I was looking for more. I
Mhm.
was a seeker
Mhm.
of truth. And
Right.
I started to seek that truth in spiritual practices and ancient
Okay.
healing practices.
So when you started to do that, what was the first thing where you're like in that? holistic path that you were looking to take, how, like, I've spoken to one of my good friends who has now overcome breast cancer, and she's very much into sound healing, light therapy,
Mhm.
a lot of like connectivity and grounding. And for her, it was like, so she went and got these little sound bowls, and she's like started to like play with them, and she's like, oh, I like this
Mhm.
frequency,
Yes.
and like, and it sort of commanded a reaction in her body. Is that something that you felt that was for you, like your first time when you decided to go into this path of healing?
Yes, I mean, there's so many modalities of healing.
Yeah.
So Reiki is one of the another very profound moment when I first had a Reiki session for the first time. I
Hmm.
had no idea what it was. See,
Yeah.
we're energy. Everything is energy. Our emotions are energy, our thoughts are energy, the foods that we eat are energy. And when you're struggling with loved ones or yourself struggling with addiction, mental health, any challenge, we're living
Hmm.
in a low frequency vibration. So when we the what these practices do is they help you to release the low dense frequency energies that are making you sick. We are always manifesting. So when we
Hmm.
start to learn that we can raise our frequency, we can raise our energetic vibrations
Yeah.
through sound healing,
Right.
through breath work, through
Yes.
meditation, through yoga, through shamanic practices like simple
Hmm.
shaking your
Right.
body, shaking your hand, shaking, just shaking. It's like a dog that shakes
Ah,
water. It's like you're
it's
shaking
shedding it.
dense energy off
Right.
of you.
Okay.
So, yeah, these practices are profound to what you're really doing. This is
Right.
really the core is you're reconnecting. I began to reconnect with my authentic truth, who I
Hmm.
really am. We're layered. I had layers. Like I think about it like Velcro, bricks of Velcro that got stuck on me over my entire life. And I'm trying to
Wow.
walk through this thing called life with
Yeah.
these bricks stuck to me. And when you start to reconnect with yourself through breath work, through meditation, to the oneness that I talked about,
Yeah.
you start to recognize that you don't want to carry these bricks anymore, that these bricks actually aren't yours to carry. And I started to you start taking these bricks and these layers
Hmm.
off of you, and you start to move a little bit more freely, and you feel lighter and you feel expanded.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you start to feel that, that's an experience that I can talk to you about, but until you feel it for
Hmm.
yourself, you won't
Hmm.
really truly understand it.
Yeah. And I think what you were saying about also manifestation is with the dense energy is that we manifest a lot of times when we talk about manifestation, we talk about, oh, I'm going to manifest money, or I'm going to, wealth and prosperity and healing. And yes, but we also manifest negativity when we're
Oh,
worrying
yeah.
and we're stuck in this perpetual train of thought where we're up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about all the things that are going to not possibly happen tomorrow, but we've
Mhm.
created all these scenarios. That's manifestation, because then tomorrow comes and you've already have this energy and this mindset of negativity that's going to feed and attract more of that. And
Yeah.
that dense energy is when people say, yeah, manifestation happens on two sides of it, right?
100%. And that's what I say. Like, there's all this like chat about, learn how to
Yeah,
manifest.
right.
We actually are always
We already doing it.
manifesting. We're already
Yeah.
doing it.
Yes.
We are just manifesting what we don't want in our
Correct.
life,
Yeah.
which is creating our suffering. And that's why like when we say, or I say, or you hear somebody say, well, you're the creator of your life,
Yes.
you are
You
literally
are.
creating your
Yep.
experience, your reality. And
Hmm.
so when I look at my life of two husbands in addiction and my son in addiction, did I cause their addiction? No. Did I attract that into my life?
That
Yes.
possibly. Yeah.
In a sense, but it was for me. It was working for me. And all of my experiences, I am in
Hmm.
gratitude for all of my experiences.
Right. Yeah.
I have processed and forgiven myself and my partners and my son, knowing that they are just on the same journey as me of recognizing where they are feeling unworthy in their
Yeah.
lives, because that's why I was in those relationships, to remember that I am worthy. I
Hmm.
deserve to have peace and love and joy and happiness in my life, but they can't give it to me. I can give it to me.
Hmm.
That's where it has to start. And only from that place am I able to then move into this place of life with surrounding myself with people who genuinely love me and
Right.
see my worth and my value.
That's powerful. A lot of people who go through different journeys in life tend to point the finger. And everything
Hmm.
you said right now was, how can I change me? Like, how do I, first of all, figure out how I can do better and treat myself better in
Yeah.
order to be better and attract better? And I think that that's the shift that for me was really powerful too. We talk about all the good things, and you have different programs within in your system that you talk about, right?
Hmm.
uh how does, say we have moms that are listening right now and they're saying, you know what, I have a daughter or son in addiction and I'm broken. I just really don't know how to go forward. I've done all the conventional fixes, but I'm not fixed. what would
Hmm.
you what would you say to that?
I would say that you're ready to look into a new way, that the things that you've tried haven't worked, or you believe they haven't worked, but they actually have all been working on underneath the surface. You might not see the changes and the shifts that have
Hmm.
happened, but there's a continuation. Things are always changing. So you're just being called to look in a new way, to pivot just a little bit. And sometimes that pivot is, me showing up into your Facebook feed that's like,
Yeah.
hey, come join Moms on a Mission.
Right.
That's the universe sending you the
I agree.
energetic match of what you're seeking. So don't give up hope. There are solutions. Do we have all the answers? No. But be open. This is my message, is be open
Mhm.
your heart and your minds to exploring a new way forward, a new way to view addiction, a new way to view the pain and the suffering that you're experiencing. Step out of the victim mentality that this is
That's good.
happening to you, and
Mhm.
recognize that you have the power to shift and change it right here and right now. And all you have to do is say yes, say yes, say yes to exploring a new way, to trying something
Mhm.
that you haven't tried before. And this is my message actually to parents, because as a parent, all of your attention, for those of you who are listening right now, all of your attention and focus has been on your loved one. And I get it, because we love our loved ones and we want to help them and we want to try to prevent the worst case scenario. The truth is, the best way in those scenarios to help your child or your loved one is to get the resources and support for yourself and do your work. Shift the focus onto you, because when you re energize and you shift your mindset, learning a new way to view everything, you show up differently from a place of influence, not trying to force, but through love, be able to influence and encourage your loved one to change. But they can't change if you don't change, because you're just repeating, regurgitating the same crazy chaos over
Mhm.
and over and over again.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. It's the same analogy where the plane is going down. If you don't put your mask on first and then help your child, you're going to run out of oxygen, and then it's just going to be, for naught. I love
Yeah.
that. That is very powerful. In your radiant recovery programs, if a mom wants to come to you and say, "Hey, I want to be part of Enable No More," what does that look like? How do one sort of get in touch with you? What does a program look like? How does somebody who is maybe a little bit more conservative and says,
Mhm.
"Ooh, this is a little bit hocus pocus. I don't know if I really believe in all this spiritual stuff, and that's not for me," but there's something really interesting there that I might want to look at.
Yeah.
How do I get past all those sort of, fears, I guess?
Yeah. Well, first thing is you can book a call with me. It's called a Path to Peace discovery call, where we can just chat from one mom to another, one parent to another, because I will work with anybody who is willing to open themselves up to hearing what I have to say with no strings attached. If you decide I'm not for you, no problem. I'm not going to take it personally. I'm here to just
Good.
share this light, shine light into your darkness to see if it's a path you want to walk down. And really beautiful way to really start to just dip your foot in the water or dip your toe in the water is the Moms on a Mission solution focused community. It is a low ticket item kind of thing. It's like
Hmm.
it's very inexpensive. I mean, you go to Starbucks for 5, 6 coffees, you're going to be able to
Right.
afford this membership, and
Easy.
it really is filled with so much value to really begin to explore what addiction truly is, to really crack the code and learn a new way.
Yep.
So that's a really beautiful, you get to get some of those spiritual practice and start to experience how you can feel calm in your body and
Hmm.
learn how to, regulate your own central nervous system. We get into self mastery, learning how to really reconnect with who we are. And we talk about the universal laws, which are how we manifest, learning tools to be able to help you move forward in your own healing and recovery so that you can actually be that influence for your child or your loved one. So that's a really simple, no-brainer way to kind of tap in to see what we're doing. And it's really a movement. It is not just a membership. It is not just a support group. It is a movement to change.
Yeah. I really like that. I think that for me in life, my whole thing is this: if I skid through life my whole entire, see, if I get 80 years and I'm afforded that, and I get to the pearly gates, in quotes, and then I get handed my life, and there's things on there that said, you didn't try, or you didn't do this because you were afraid to try. I think
Mhm.
not trying something new is robbing yourself of opportunities to feel better. And I think
Yeah.
everybody out right now is looking to feel better and to be healed and to find an equilibrium, like a balance, just to feel content.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I've never always been on the same kind of mind path as you. I've still learning and growing, and I come from a very conservative background in Christianity and church,
Mhm.
and religious rules, and I'm deconstructing. And I think that there are a lot of people out there who are still doing that. And I think for Healing Pass and for a lot of what you offer, a lot of people might be afraid to do it. But my whole thing is, if you don't try, you never find out what it could be. And if it, like you said, I love how you open it up. If it's not for you, it's not for you. No strings attached.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there is so much fear, and that fear of trying something new is really what gets in our way of our
Mm-hmm.
growth.
Mm-hmm.
And when we are stuck, this is where we repeat cycles. Like, how is it working for you? If what you're
Yeah.
doing isn't working for you and you continue to do the same thing and expect different results, it's like that definition of insanity. We've all
Yeah,
heard it,
exactly.
and yet we all
Yeah.
do it,
And we all do
right?
it. We think we could do better. And it's just being comfortable in the uncomfort, right? It's like it's
Exactly.
that same. I was just talking to a friend the other day about it, and we were talking about how you're in pain, and that pain of being in the same cycle of just like of the darkness and taking a minute, and that pain of when you decide to do something new is the exact same pain, but you are afraid more of losing control because
That's
now
right.
letting go of that control actually puts you into control. It's
Yeah.
it's weird. Is that correct? Like, I mean, it sounds a little like back forth, like lose control, gain control sort of thing.
Well, see, it's a false sense of control.
Right.
So
Yes,
we
it
think
is.
we're in
Yeah,
control,
yeah.
but really it's an illusion
Right.
because we are not in control. The only thing that we're in control of is ourself.
Yeah.
And when we fearlessly see people that are successful, and that's not just financial
No.
success, but when we are able to come to a successful place, like moving through,
Hmm.
it's because we fearlessly move forward. I'm afraid all the time.
Yeah.
I'm doing
Yeah.
stuff all the time where I'm like, oh my gosh,
Just
like
do the hard
I'm
stuff.
really uncomfortable with
Yeah.
this. But I push myself to say, no, Jen, you can fearlessly move through this.
Right.
You are capable, you are resilient, and you've got what it takes. I can look at all the shit you've already overcome. You can
Yeah.
do this, right? Like you can do this. And when we are able to, again, that fear that stops us is normally a deep rooted belief system
Hmm.
or a wound or a trauma that is trying to keep us safe, but it's an illusion because you're hurting right now, and the only way for you to break free from that hurt is to do something different than what you've been doing.
Correct. Yeah.
So by doing something different, you are literally going to shift the energetics in which you are moving. It's like a ripple effect of, like, you drop a pebble in the water and you see that ripple effect.
Hmm.
That's what I say. As soon as somebody says yes to showing up to a free masterclass for me, they're shifting the dynamics in their life just by saying yes.
Yeah.
So it's not hard. It's not, what am I trying to say? I mean, it's hard to say yes, but you're from
But
the
once you're in
success and the
it, yeah.
transformation that you're going to see from that one yes,
Yeah.
you're going to begin to continue to go, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, I get this. I like
Yeah.
this. I want more of this.
Yeah. And when we're in our dark part and we're in shame and we're in this sort of mental health crisis, we're not proud of ourselves. And the way that we actually start to become proud of ourselves is by saying yes, is by
Building that
doing
trust.
the things that are extremely uncomfortable, creating a track record of us showing up. And you
Yeah.
can turn back and you can be like, hey, that is actually who I am. I've shown up, even on the days that are extremely messy. Like I feel like garbage. I don't like fucking wanting to be here. I really don't want to hear what you have to say, but I'm going to sit here and I'm going to take it in. And it might only be one or two little tidbits, but you end up like growing into this person who is, like you said, manifesting new changes, new ways, moving different, taking off the bricks.
Yeah.
You become lighter, and it's a process. And I think a lot of people today are really worried about the microwave fix. It's like, let me go on and get one or two therapy sessions and let me unpack one or two things that have been in my generations for hundreds of years, and then I should be okay.
I'm
But
fine. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So Jen, when someone say, now I've said yes and I show up, what is the next part of my journey with you and this healing path that I have? What does that look like?
Well, saying yes is really a commitment to self. And you just talked about it. It's like building trust with yourself. Because see, we've been placing our power outside of ourselves. So when we start saying yes, when I said yes to myself, when the clients that I work with said yes to themselves, whether it's in the Moms in a Mission membership, one-on-one coaching, group coaching, it's about showing up for you.
Mm-hmm,
So this is
mm-hmm.
about reclaiming your worth. The step is, the journey is remembering that you're worthy, that you are deserving. So when you say yes, you're investing in yourself. We invest in our furniture, we invest in our
Right.
cars, we
Yeah.
invest in our children and their recovery. And I think about how many thousands of dollars I've spent over the year, thousands and thousands of dollars to get help for my loved ones, but I wasn't willing to invest in myself,
Mm,
and I
powerful.
continued to
Very true.
suffer. So what the next step is, and the next step and the next step is keep showing up for yourself. And one day is going to look different from the next. Like we talked about this morning before
Mm-hmm.
this call, I was
Yep.
having a day. And
Yeah.
I have days, I have really tough days, but I show up. I do what I need to do. I use my tools, I use my resources. I got up extra early. I cried. I danced. I did my breath work. And I was like, I'm
Amazing.
showing up for this podcast because that's
Yeah.
my purpose and calling. When you know your purpose and your calling, you keep showing up
I
for
think that's so
me
good.
and
And
for
that's
you
exactly what
and for
someone
us.
needs to hear. Amazing. Like that's exactly it. And it's so authentic. Like we were talking before, you got on and you were like, this morning was horrible. I've been, I have to show up in a lot of things all week. And it has just been really, really tough.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it. And I think that a lot of people think that healing and growing is just, it's like this magic pill. It's like the green pill we take, and then all of a sudden our mind opens up and everything is just this wave of like just beauty and sunshine. But on the contrary, it sometimes looks a lot messier because we're unpacking a lot of stuff that have hurt us.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
when we the work is in recognizing that this journey that we're on, this thing called life, isn't all rainbows and butterflies. It's
No.
also the storms that brew and the tornadoes that come. It's all of it. And the illusion, what we've been programmed to believe, that we're everything's supposed to be happy and
Hmm.
joyful, and I'm just supposed to be like living large every day.
Yeah.
And the
Right.
truth is that's not true. The truth is you're all of it, and being able to hold yourself through the
Hmm.
storms,
Hmm.
enjoy the joy, but also recognize when the darkness comes that you're just being prepared for more. You're being
Right.
prepared for that bigger mission that we are all here to discover and live by.
So there's that old Japanese, I think it's called Ikigai. I could be saying it wrong. Have you heard of that before?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
yeah, so where they talk about finding the joy in the very small parts of life.
yeah,
Where, we on social media, we stroll through and we see everyone's highlight reels, and a lot of it is acting. You got these young kids who are buying these big mansions and these cars, and we're all like, oh, we should be farther along. And you've got
yeah,
like Martha Stewart's out there who are just everything's perfect, which is really just messing up and fucking up our brains to think that we should be more and better.
Yeah.
And in our healing journey, we're like, well, why aren't I farther along? Because, Susie down the road seems to be doing it and she's making cupcakes and her son's doing really well. And here I'm stuck and my kid's still going through the same cycle. But, it's all of that. But it's like you said, investing in yourself. And once you put, the oxygen mask and you find help. And I think through you, Jen, is going to be a lot of people who are going to say, you know what? That resonates with me. Like I'm looking at you right now, and the way we're speaking, it feels like you have put in a lot of work. And the reality of it is that it's an up and down, and your dips become less sort of
Yes.
critical, right?
Yeah, and that's what I explain is, I look at it as a bridge, a gap. So when we're suffering, there is a disconnect from the truth of who we are. So when I'm struggling and suffering, there's a belief system, there's some pain, there's some emotions, there's energy that I'm dealing with, and it creates this gap where I feel victim. I feel victim to life. I feel like this,
Mm,
why is this happening to me?
why me? Yeah.
And
Oh,
then
again, of course, me.
right. Yeah. Like this always happens. These are belief systems. These are
Yeah.
deep rooted in our subconscious mind, which causes our suffering.
And I think
And
it's also
then,
very imperative that we don't speak it out. Like, oh,
yeah,
I'm such a
energize
dizzy
it.
bitch, or I'm this, and we start calling ourselves names, right?
Yeah. Judging ourselves. The key is in catching ourselves in those moments. Like this morning, I'm like, holy shit, I got a lot of emotions coming through. I'm having a
Right.
rough morning. Some things led up over this week that I was just feeling it. A lot of triggers, a lot, and the holidays do that for
Right.
for
They
lots
do.
of us.
Hmm.
And but when you have the right tools and when you have the right support and the resources that you can access, you are able to consciously tap into the moment that you're having to say, okay, I have a choice here. I have conscious choice to do something. I came into my office. I come into my space just on the other side of
Hmm.
my computer. I've got a whole meditation area and all my
Right.
tools. And I started to breathe and I started to do my work. And when I start to do my work, I close the gap. It's like I'm walking across the bridge from my victim mentality back to my truth of who I am, the victor, the one that
Yeah.
creates my reality. And I close that gap. And you see, this is practice over perfection.
There it
When
is.
we practice these tools, it
Hmm.
doesn't happen like overnight. There is no
No.
quick fix, guys. But when we practice and we remember that gap that used to maybe be weeks that I'd be feeling like shit or months or years where I,
Hmm.
where I was living in victim mentality, now maybe an hour and I
Right.
can pull myself back into center point with
I like
myself,
that.
the truth of who I am. And the same is with our loved ones. I mean, I look at my son and his journey where he would be, in active addiction or, he would, return to use or relapse and be in active addiction for months or a year.
Hmm.
Now, he still struggles. And there's times that he returns to use. And it's like, again, 16 hours and he's back on track. This is called closing the gap. This is called conscious awareness. This is called the power of what you are, and the power that you have to create your reality and shift and change at any moment, at any
Extremely
moment.
important topic. Yeah. Wow. Well said. That's really true. And I think that people have to also allow themselves grace when they do fall back into a victim mentality,
Yep.
recognize it. And like you said, once you've equipped them with tools and once we equip ourselves with the knowledge, we recognize it and be like, you know what? I've been here for 8 hours. I'm not going to do this for 16. Like
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
what 16 feels like. Eight is already bad enough.
Yep.
Like, and I think that when you, as your program and you're talking to these moms that are in crisis, these are the things
Mhm.
that they will learn and they have to know that it's not going to go away, but you can now have a bit of weapon to fight the dark days.
That's right. And there, like we said, there is no quick fix. And the fact that, this is part of why there's so much suffering is because we've been told and programmed that just go to treatment and you'll be
Hmm.
fine.
Right.
Just,
Like
do
that
this and you'll
toxic
be fine.
positivity we were talking
And
about.
what the truth is when it comes to addiction and treatment, I mean, treatment is wonderful, but then you come back to reality. Just like
Yeah.
if I could take myself on a vacation just to give myself a break, but when I
Yeah.
come back, I'm
Great.
still going to be dealing with the same shit that I've been
For
dealing with
sure.
before I went
Yeah.
on
And it's even
vacation.
worse because now you got post vacay blues.
Right. So the again, the truth is we have to learn to
Yeah.
feel to heal. We have to be willing to feel
Oh, that's
all of
good.
our emotions to be able to heal
Feel to
them,
heal. Like
and
that.
then to be able to recognize that everything is constantly changing. So when I'm in a moment like I was this morning where I'm feeling like my life is like, falling apart, I have to again remind myself everything is always changing, Jen. This is going to move. This is moving through you. It's not always going to be like this. Just
Hmm.
hold on, use your tools. Remember, just hold on to who you are. And sometimes maybe, I have a day or two or three or five or six, whatever. But there's a moment where I'm going to say, enough, Jen. It's time to move. It's time to get up. It's time to keep going. It's time to love yourself and forgive yourself and just keep going. Right?
Right.
Forgiveness
I
is
love that.
also a huge critical piece of this is forgiving ourselves, making amends with ourselves, being loving and compassionate with ourselves, and then doing the same with all of the people that we're in
I love
connection
that you
with.
said that. That was gonna be my next question, is forgiveness.
Yeah, it's such a huge critical piece to really living consciously because we
Hmm.
are all just walking through this life trying to figure this shit out. And there is no rule book. There is no one way. There is no one way. One size does not fit all.
No. And I think that's the problem. I think that we think that what someone else is using that works for them needs to work for us too.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who don't want to explore new ways of forms of healing and practices, and like we were talking before, where we manifest and we're healing, and then we're talking about like the different modules that you can get into on your program in regards
Mhm.
to the holistic ways and paths. um, you've also become an author of a book, and it's called A Bigger Mission. Can we talk a little bit about that? I want
Yeah.
to. I've actually ordered it in. Was supposed to come in today, but it hasn't yet. So unfortunately, I don't have it here to show people. But you
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, so this is a beautiful book that I'm just so honored to have been part of 11 other authors. We all came together to share our real stories, our real and
Mhm.
raw stories about the trauma that was endured and
Are these
how
other
it
moms
really
with you together? Is
what's
it is it
that?
is it all women talking about their
There's
journeys
it's
mainly?
all women and one
That's good.
man. His
Oh,
name's Rue, and his
awesome.
story is powerful. And this is about, the power of divine masculine energy.
Yeah,
So, like, we don't get into this in the book, but I mean, having Rue on this book, in this book, was so,
such a
so
value add.
pivotal
Yeah.
because a lot of women are showing up and doing this work, but there are a lot of masculine men, divine masculine men that are coming into this work that are like yourself,
Yeah.
that are willing to get vulnerable and raw and real. And that is the only way to overcome your trauma, to face it
Hmm.
fearlessly and learn how to move through it. And
Yeah.
his story is beautiful. Everybody's story has something different in it. That's what's really powerful about the book. It's like chicken soup for the soul, but all about trauma and
No, that's
how to
awesome.
shine a light into the darkness of what you've experienced and see it as a gift. Because the truth is, our purpose stems from our deepest wounds
Yeah.
most of the time,
Yeah,
almost
it does.
every time.
Yep.
If you can identify your core wounds, the trauma that really has
Hmm.
rocked your world,
Yeah.
and you can move through it, it is going to birth your purpose. That's what you're
It
here
really
for.
does. It starts to define your previous why,
Yeah.
and then also the reason why you want to do different. It just defines why in your life. Because we're always
Yeah.
like, well, why? Why do I feel this way? Why do I not do this? Why am I doing that? And if you can find, like you said, you find your incident or your first memory that you were like, man, I put that under the carpet, haven't dealt with it, and it's been kind of been shoved with everything else that I haven't been dealing with because of
That's
that
right.
root.
Yeah.
And yeah, huge. I love that. And so with this book itself, is it a story of people who've overcome, or is there also still people who are in the journey?
I mean, I think we're all still in the
Yeah.
journey, to be
Yeah.
honest with
Yeah.
you. Like, yes, we
I heard myself
overcome.
say it. I thought,
We
yeah.
we are triumphant in overcoming things because we're still moving through it. I mean, I'm still moving through my trauma, even though I've
Good.
identified it,
Right.
I'm still breaking the cycles because
Yeah.
there's layers of that trauma. And this is the truth of, yes, we can overcome, but when you overcome, you're going to continue to reveal under things laying under the surface of that trauma, of that
Hmm.
struggle, of
Hmm.
that belief system, because every trauma creates a core command in the mind, and the core command plays our lives like we're like a puppet on puppet strings. So when we connect to that and we heal that aspect of our trauma, we're going to be able to go deeper. And this is what happens in the awakening and coming back to self journey is you just keep pulling off that velcro that I talked about,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden revealing more of who you are, and then you want to just keep revealing more of who you are because it feels so good.
Hmm.
So, yes, we've overcome it. And yes, we are all still working through this thing called life that continues to bring challenges that are there for our overall growth.
Okay. Jen, on your No More Radiant Recovery program, I'm going to circle back to it again now.
Mhm.
If a mom's listening now and they're like, you know what, I really want to get a hold of you, what are the best resources? What's the way for someone to reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can send me an email at
I'll put
info@enablenomore.ca.
all these details down in the bio as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can email me directly. You can find me on Instagram at Enable No More. And my website is enablenomore.ca as well. So super easy. Just Google me. You'll find me. You can reach out. You can book a call. You can book right from the website. Book a call right from the website. You can register for Moms on a Mission. So yeah, just Enable No More and let's connect. I would love to chat with you because I know that there is another way and you have the power to tap into it just by saying yes.
That's amazing. Jen, now talking about your past, if you could tell your person, yourself, 10 years ago, what do you know now? What would be that little bit of advice, or what would you if you stood in front of yourself 10 years ago when you were at your lowest points, what would you say to that person?
I think I would say, honestly, you're going to be just fine. You are powerful. You are beautiful and you are a bright light. And you need to keep stoking that fire, girl, and you keep going because you are going to do great things in this world.
That's amazing. I think I'm going to leave it there. I think that's a beautiful ending. Jen, I really appreciate your time. I am honored that you have come as far as you have, that you've put the work in. And I want to say that thank you for that, because there's a lot
Oh,
of women
thank
out
you.
there that are probably saying, you know what, today's the day. I'm going to listen to this podcast maybe while I'm in the bath, and I'm going to take a big handful of pills. I mean, I know
Mm,
that sounds grim, but there are people out there that are that. And I
yeah.
really hope that they see your heart, because it is beautiful. And I love that you share your story in pain. And I know that
Mm.
this is going to be important to somebody who really needs to hear it. So I really thank you for your time and
Aw.
your hard work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for this podcast.
Yeah,
Thank you for your heart and your vulnerability
thank you.
and your purpose in showing up for you because you're showing up for me and you're
Yeah,
showing up for all of us. And that's truly, such a blessing and a testament to the work that you've done for yourself. And you, like me, this isn't a
yeah,
boastful thing. We are
yeah,
shining our light to shine light into the darkness of others to show them that it's possible to turn it
it is.
around.
And that's
Yeah.
well said. 100%.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. Well, that was a Gary My podcast. I really appreciate you listening today. If you found that this was information that really hit home, or if you know somebody who really needs to hear it, click on the like and subscribe. And you can also share. There's also a little tab on the bottom of the bio that says text here. Just leave us your email address or your phone number. And if you have specific questions that are anonymous, you can just leave a comment. Otherwise, I'll put all of Jennifer's information on the bottom, and her programs, and also her book, and you can reach out to her. Thanks, guys. Thanks for this was the Gary My podcast. Bye-bye.